So in this video, we'll turn our attention to the third tutorial in Lesson 6, T03 dash, I'm sorry, T06-03. Um, One of the interesting things in databases is that subjects don't necessarily need to have a relationship. They could have some kind of association. Uh, it doesn't happen very often, and usually when it does happen, sometimes those separate subjects would be actually dealt with in different databases, but then somehow linked in the behind the scenes, what we call a back end link between the databases. But most database packages actually give you the ability to basically combine databases if you need to. That tends to happen when you need to make a report where there's something from a report that's based on one subject and something in a report that's based on another subject or even many subjects, and you want to bring those things together in some kind of summary or aggregation. I'm going to give you an example here, and I've got this one that I use for my auctions that I do on eBay. We saw some of this earlier. And I want to open up the relationship model here. Okay, now in this tutorial, I've already built most of the objects that you need to use. Okay, I made the main purpose of this is to teach you how to do a multiple subject report. And if you look here, I've got two major subjects here. One is the auction, and it can be categorized by an auction type. And if you look in that table, and we saw this before uh, in lesson 4, when we built the report, we had the bids and basically the costs or the expenses and the income that we made, and from that we could determine a profit. Now that was the expenses and the cost or fees, or if you want to call it expenses and income, which would be like the winning bid and all that, that was associated with each particular auction. But in doing my business, I have other business expenses beside those related to the individual auctions. I have things like the overhead, um, buying envelopes to mail out. I don't actually price that out on the auction. I just go out and buy them in bulk. Uh, Maybe if there was a monthly expense of being on eBay, I would have that in there. I don't have that in this case, but even though there's expenses on auction on individual auctions, and then I have overall expenses. Okay, those aren't really related. Those are different things. Yet when I go to report to the IRS what my expenses were every year, I would add up all the expenses I had for all the auctions, and then I would add up all the other expenses I had and make a report on that. So, can I make a report where I actually show the expenses related to the auctions, the expenses related to my miscellaneous expenses, and then combine that to give it an overall total? Yeah, sure, I can do that. And see, I don't even need to have a relationship between auction and expenses in order to make this happen. We can do it just through basically a calculation, through math. So again, I have the auction subject table, and it has a type. I have expenses, and they have a type. Let me open up the auction just to remind you what we have there. We have things like sports cards and all that. This is my type field, and I think you remember this from lecture 4 when we looked at uh, data visualization for the first time. Let's go out to the expense table, and you'll see the things I have there. So I have an expense item, and again, that is the other lookup that I have here. And just to show you, I even built the lookup form like we usually do. You can see I got things like the invoices that I have every month, the invoices from eBay or wherever else it may come from, mailers that I have, boxes that I have to buy to ship things in. Those are the kind of things I would keep. Postage. Uh, I had post office box too, which would also be another expense type that would be related to the business that it wouldn't necessarily expense out to each individual auction. Now, some companies actually do that. They estimate how many auctions they'll have, and they divide these things among them. In that case, I would have had maybe a miscellaneous expense field over an auction, but I'm not doing that here. I'm keeping track of my business expenses basically separately in this table. So I've got the expense date and the cost, which is basically the expense that I'm reporting on. So in a year, if this you see all these were 1999, if that's all I had that year, I would just sum those up, and then any auctions I had that year, sum up those, and then whatever values they have for both those summations, add them together, and you got it. Okay. So anyway, I want to build a report that basically does this. So how do I do something like that? Well, first, and close that down. I'm going to close down this window too while I'm at it. Um, One of the things I did is I did a auction summary because again I don't need all the fields from auction, so I just have an auction summary that's going to bring back the category, the sale, the expense, and the profit. Okay, so and of course some of these may have lost, so you see that in parentheses. And then same thing on the expenses. I've got uh, the category and the expense. So two simple queries to do that. And then I got this one called auctions. And when I open it up, it's going to come up with basically the information I've got for the cards and when it closed and all that. Really doesn't have a whole lot different than the auction summary, I think. Let me go back and look at that. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Take that back. Let me open that up, the auction summary, so you can see it. Okay. So again, the difference between this one, remember we had to go, that was the one we developed earlier on for our original report. And we went and changed that into a left outer join so that we could sort based on the category. That was what we did at the beginning of this lecture. All right. It was in tutorial 06-01. So now what I want to do in this auction is limit it even further. I don't want as many fields in there. Now, one of the things I could have really have done is I could have taken this query and made it the since I've already made these calculations here, I could have made it the source for this query. Okay, let me just do that for you. I mean, this is a little bit off the page now. This was not in the tutorial, but I'm going to show you how you can make a query from another query. All right, so let's remember what we had in there. We had display order, we had category. You know what the difference is here, though? I'm sorry, this is the auction one. That has only the ones that have winning bids. I think this one actually has them all, doesn't it? Yeah, I think it does. I think it has them all. So it wouldn't work. We would have to put it on the table. But let's say I was only interested in the ones that brought back the winning bids. So basically what I'm saying is I want a subset of the other query. So what I could have done is I'm going to go in here and just do it. Again, this is off the page a bit, but worthwhile for those of you who have an interest in this. I'm going to go to query design, and you can see there's another tab that says queries, and I can take that auction query in now, add that, and now I could drop in the fields from the query. Okay, so again, I had display order in here, and I had category, and I had the I think I just had I think let me go back and look again. What did I do in that one originally? I think that's the category description of. I'm sorry, wrong one. I'm looking at the display order, the category, the sale, the expense, and the profit. That's it. Okay, so they're all in there, and so I could take the sale, the expense, and the profit, and then if I run that one, you'll see I get the same information, except you'll notice in here I got 201 records here, Where if I run this one doesn't exist now, right now. It's just called query one. It hasn't been saved yet, so that's why it's not showing up here. In fact, I'll save it just so you can see it. Okay, so I'm just going to save it like this because I'm not going to use it actually. But there it is. It's query one. If I run this other one, which is basically supposed to be the same thing, you'll see that it has more records in it because I didn't have that constraint on the bids being greater than zero. Because I had the constraint, this one will only bring back 201, with this one bring back all 207. And that's really what I want because my expenses are expenses, even if I didn't sell anything, even if the auction didn't end. So while that one, that's something to really watch out for. That query here was that query, this auction query, was built just to show what happened with auctions where I actually did sell the item I had up for auction, where this is actually talking about my expenses for all the auctions I had. So it's a little bit of a different. I can't just make a query from this query and go. Okay, I really have to go back and I need to build it again from the auction table. Hope that's clear enough. Again, I'm not even going to use this anyway because I have already built this query that I need to use, and this is it right here again. All right, and you'll see there's nothing in here about bids being greater than zero. So I'm using all the records basically in there. And by the way, I did say over the year, turns out all the records I have in here are from 1999. So if I wanted to do it based on a year though, I could do that. I could have a field in here that constrains the year to be 1999 or somehow group them based on year. You could do things like that. So anyway, I've got this auction summary. I've got the expense summary. Now I want to build what will basically amount to be sub-reports in a master form, all right? But we'll treat it as if they're master reports themselves. So the first one I did is I built this auction summary, and I'm just going to open it up so you can see it. All right, so I've got each of the categories, and I've got the total on each of those categories. Well, that's a little bit different than what we saw when we did this one, right? Where we had the categories, but then we had all the auctions for each one of them. Where did they go here? Well, it turns out that's not a hard thing to do, and I'll show you how to do that right now. I'm going to go up into the design view here. Actually, I'll just go, I'm sorry, the layout view. You see in layout view, it looks that way too. How did I not have to do that? Well, I didn't have to put anything on that detail if I didn't want to. I could. This one, if I open it up and I expand this, you'll see that there's a detail section, and I could have had those detail fields in there like I did before. But you don't need. I don't want those. I just want summaries for each of the category. I don't care about what I did in each of the auctions. I just want to know the summary across the categories. So all I do is I just close down the detail, and now that's ready to go. Now there are a couple other things I'll need to do here, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. I just want to look at my notes just to make sure I'm not forgetting anything else before I get too deeply into this. No, it looks like we're pretty good here. So if you notice, I group on category. I sort on display order, so the ones I typically would see first I can. Again, if I didn't want to have it sorted on display order, if I wanted to be alphabetical on category, I would just take out this sort, do the group on category, and then say from A to Z. And it would do the same thing as grouping and sorting on it then. Maybe I'll go back and do that later on so you can see it. But again, right now, I've got the category header that's going to have that information. I'm not going to have any detail, and then I've got the report footer. Now, something to point out at this point, and this is true for all sub reports, no matter what you do. You don't ever need a page header or page footer. The page header and page footer will always be related to the master report. Okay, now they can have a report header and a report footer that would just print out within the master. Okay, but you never need to have a page header or a page footer on a. It just wouldn't do anything if you put anything in there. It just wouldn't print because it's going to use the master's page header and page footer. So now I've got those, and I even say that in step 7. Step 2, I'm sorry, step 2 of the tutorial, that the page header and footers cannot be defined from subreports. So that's that one, and I thought there was a property I needed to set here, and this is similar to previous. Yeah, it is. Okay. Oh no, it's not here where I said it. I remember where I'm. Okay, so that's it. That's all I had to do on this. Now, one of the things people sometimes ask me, do I need to have that on no data thing here? I would put it there. It doesn't hurt. It turns out, no, you really don't. When a sub report is part of a master report, the master reports will keep the thing from opening if there's absolutely no data. If you say I know data here, it's really not going to do anything. But here, keep in mind, and this is one of the interesting things, especially on these multi-subject reports. I could say that right now. I could use it on its own. Maybe I just want to have a report about, what's the summary of all my sales on based on category. All my auction closeouts or all my auctions based on category. Well, this is it. There's a nice little report for it right there. Okay. So now because it could also be a master by itself, I do want that on no data thing because if there was no data here, I wouldn't want this to open. When we get into lesson 7 and we build an application, I'm going to actually show you how we could suppress a report from opening if it doesn't have any data in it. As part of the application. In other words, we would double click on this and nothing would happen. Okay, and that's what on no data does basically. If there was absolutely no data to show and you tried to open this object, it wouldn't open. It would just say there's no data to show. That's what the macro does for you. All right. So now let's go over to expense and open it up in design view. All right. And let's go back and open it in layout view. All right. And then same thing on here. Okay, but here, and again, I'm not showing the individual times I have mailers or postage or boxes or anything else like that. In fact, one of the things you see on here too is I've got a PO box, but I don't have any expense associated with it. And truthfully, if I was doing this, I would probably set this up so it showed 0. But right now, it's showing that there just isn't anything. I haven't recorded anything right now, and that might be good too. Let's show that in a normal view so you can see it. So is what it looked like in a report by itself. And again, this could serve as a summary of my expenses all by itself. But what I want to do is I want to take this report. Oh, and I'll go into design views just so you can see. Same thing. I just have the detail closed down. If I opened it up, then you could put fields in here. And in fact, let me go there and show you what. See, it opens it up then because there was actually a record for each one of these mailers. I just don't have any fields in there to show the data. But it's giving me the space to actually put those records in. Interesting. Anyway, let's go back and close it down. And then we got basically our report that we want. Okay, so I want to take that expense report and I want to take that auction report and I want to put them in a report together. And then what I want to do is I want to have a field in that main report that basically summarizes this, the expense value, plus going back to the expenses, that value for total expenses. All right. So yeah, I know I made some format movement there, so it's asking me to save it again. So let's build that now. So everything you need in this tutorial has already been built for you up to this point. So now we're going to actually go out, and this is step 3 where we create the master report. This we have to do ourselves right now. So we're going to go out and do a create. And this one that says blank report. Okay, we got to be careful here. Okay, don't be on one of these and then just hit report. Remember what will happen is it will actually try to generate a report. I want a blank report. I want a clean canvas pretty much. Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to say blank report. And then I'm going to go up to its format, I think it is. Is that where I do no, that's not right. Page setup. Page setup. And I want to make it landscape. I want more width than I want height on this. It's typically what I do on some of these reports where I've got a lot of information to put on the page. I'm going to save this whole thing right now. I'm going to call it RPT balance. Okay. So it's named it. It's named the object and placed it here. And now I'm going to go to design view. Now, I know I told you most of the time when I do reports, I work through layout view, but in this case, I'm going to go to design view. Now, this is a report that is not bound to anything. If I opened up its property sheets right now, its property sheet right now, and go somewhere on the report, so you got the report property sheet, you'll see there is no record source, and there won't be. There won't be any record source for this, okay? Now, one of the things I probably do want to do is I want to change the caption up there, so I'm going to make it balance right now while I'm thinking about it. Okay. I could have said business balance or whatever else, but we're going to change the caption at least for that tab to be balanced. All right, again, I'm going to close on the property sheet so you got more of a view here if I need it. Um, Easy to open up again, obviously. All right, so I want to go out up there and I want to do a design, and I want to go to title and date. And what kind of did I use there? Title and date and time. Uh, why did I do that? Go to design, as shown below. Hit the title and date. Oh, I want to put the title and date in there. Okay, I got it. All right, so I'll tell you what, let's start with the title first. So I'll put a title in here. And I want to call it balance. Okay, and it's already given me that, so that's fine. Um, I'm not seeing everything here really well, but that's okay. Let's just do it. Oh, I know why, because I am not in design view. I'm sorry, I'm in layout view yet. Let me go to design view. So, and because I know I'm going to need a lot more room in that header. Um, Again, I want to go to design, the date and time now. And oh, I don't know. Do I want to do both of them? Yeah, let's do them both. Okay, I'm going to do a date and a time on here. So that kind of stamps the report. That's the nice thing. It tells you the date it was created and the time it was generated. So that if data changes, people will know that just what data this reflected at the time. And again, do what you usually do. I'll come back and I'll format this later on. But those are really what I needed up there anyway. Um, and let's see. I think that's all I need to do as far as getting the header together. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to save it just one more time. Now I am going to drop in the two sub reports. So I want to put auction summary first, and then I want to do expense summary. So here I need some detail, so I'm going to drop that down. And again, if I did want to have a page header or footer, I could do that here, and it would work because this is the master basically, and I can have a report footer too if I want to. I don't think I do that here though. Yeah, I do. I'm sorry, I do. I do have a page footer. Oh, that's right. I need to put the page numbers on here for each page. So I'm going to drop that down a little bit. And again, I'm going to go back up here and do page number. And I'm going to put it at the bottom of the page in the footer. I really didn't even need to expand that out because doing this now would have automatically expanded it out. And I like this page N of M thing, so I'm going to do that. All right, and it puts it, and it's going to put it right in the middle. Yeah, that's okay. If you want to move it to the edge, you could do that. I think in the tutorial, I moved it over like this a little bit and close that up a bit. There we go. All right. So again, I'm going to save it. I'm going to make this detail up bigger. In fact, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to close down the group sort and total wizard bar. Simply because there isn't anything to group sort and total on this. There's nothing to be bound that the master is bound to. We did that on the individual sub reports. So let's take the auction one and we're just going to drop that in here and see what it did. It created a nice. First, it put the sub report control in here, and it put this little auction summary label on here. I don't need that because it's actually going to be in the header of the thing. If I didn't want a header, that would be another way to label it, though. But I do want a header because I do have some fields in here that I want to have headers on. So I'm going to do this. I'm just going to expand it out a bit so it covers more of the form. Okay. Now I could expand this out if I want to. That'd be fine. But I'm not going to. I'm going to do Control Z right now and go back to where I was. So I'm going to show you there's actually an automated way to expand this thing. One thing I want to do is I want to move it up at the top a bit. Okay. Now I do want to make sure I got some space between this one and this one. So I will drop this in and position it below. And even though I'm going to set this up so it dynamically expands or contracts, you will still always have that space between them. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to drop this one in. Do the same thing I did before. Get rid of the label. Kind of position it near there, maybe that, like that. Drag it so it's the same size. And again, you can use alignment here to do this if you want to. Excuse me. All right. So, and in fact, I'm even going to close this down a bit. All right. So I've got that now. And if I hit save and I go over to view, you'd see this. And look at it. It expanded it out so I could see it in this view. Okay. If I go to print preview, it did too. It expanded out there too. But and of course, because this one was so big, it went over onto another page. One thing I always do though, just to make sure, because sometimes it will expand but not contract. Okay, now we don't really have to worry about contracting on this one because we really made it small to begin with. But if I had a bigger space, if I had aligned this to assign this to more real estate on the screen, I may not need all that real estate. Then I want to be able to shrink it if I can too. Let's just go and close the print preview on it. And I'm going to go back to design view. And then now I could do each of these separately or I could do them both at once. You could highlight the outline for the first sub-reports sub-report control, and then the second sub-report control. Just hold down your control. Now you got them both, and go up and hit property sheet. And so now you got a multiple section property sheet, and you go in here, and one of the things is can grow is yes, and we saw that it can, but can shrink says no, meaning that even if there was nothing in there, it would still come up with the heading that says auction summary and then the titles for the columns underneath it. If that's okay with you, fine. Okay. Typically, though, if I don't have anything to report, I don't even want to see anything about it. Okay. So in that one, I would probably make can shrink yes. Again, this is kind of up to you. I know in the tutorial I did this and I say that you should do it, but I just want to let you know that this is something that you have to decide on. You know, this is another one of those look and feel things that you get to make a decision about. I can't imagine I would ever have a situation if I'm creating this report anyway that I would have an auction summary that wouldn't have auctions and expenses in it, unless I just had a month maybe where I had some expenses but I just didn't do any auctions that month, or vice versa. I guess that could happen. I don't think it's ever happened to me though. So typically, just having can grow would be enough in this case. But because it could happen that I may not have anything some month, I want to say can shrink and make that yes. You'll see again when we do AO7, we will have a report where sections. It'll have a multi. It'll be a multi subject report, and sometimes the subjects don't have data, and then we don't want this scene open, so it won't appear. All right. Now, again, we built this, and the master has nothing bound to it. It doesn't have to be that way. Okay, I could have, maybe I had two supplemental tables. All right, I could have the master subject and then sub-reports for each of the supplemental tables, and it would work exactly the way we're doing it right here now. Okay, the only difference would be that you would actually have a relationship between the master that's being represented, and probably you would have fields from that too, obviously in the master, and then you'd have these sub-reports, that are linked to it, basically. All right, but anyway, we've got this now, and that's really cool. Okay, let's go out and close this down because I think we're done with that. Let's save it. And then I want to go up here and I want to see how it's going. So now we're seeing this right now. That's not a bad report by itself, okay? And I want to go and look at it in print preview view, and it's coming along. Yeah, I got a lot of formatting to do to make it really look good and all that. But it's getting there where we basically got two reports that we brought together in one report. But I want to do something else. I want to actually take some of these numbers here and add them to numbers in here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to design view. And this is now where we will have to do a little bit of, it's not really coding, but it appears like coding. We're going to do some typing anyway to make this happen. But it turns out even here, Axis is going to give us some help. One of the things I want to do is I want to close these down a little bit. You can see Axis assigns a lot of room when it generates things, and I don't know why it does it. And I always like to close these down a bit, and it's sometimes hard. See, I'm having a hard time getting that to come up with a. There it is. That's what I want, to make it go down like this. You know, in fact, one of the things I could borrow, obviously, from here if I want to. I'm gonna go over here. I want to make the background here the same color that I have here. So I'm going, no, I didn't want to do that. I want to go to the canvas. So now I'm on the canvas, and I'm going to open up its property, and I want the back color. Am I actually, no, I'm on the report now. Okay, there it is. It says section. That means now I'm in the header section. Okay, and you see, it gave me this thing, which as I said, don't use those. I didn't realize that was like that. I really want this one here and this one here. I mean, if you do that, I wouldn't take off points if you had those. It's not that big a deal if you use the theme colors. But again, just be aware your theme colors, Microsoft can change them, and then you got a problem. I'm going to use the literal colors, the hexadecimal colors, I think they call them, and that codes, and that's how it does it. So now I've got that like I want it. And on this one, I'm just going to take. I'm just going to highlight. I'm going to highlight the label like this and do a format, and I think I just have to click here then. It didn't do it. Oh, nuts. Why is that happening? Yeah, I notice sometimes when you try to go from a embedded object to the main object, it doesn't always work. No, it's not going to do that here. So let's find out. What did I use here? I'm just going to highlight that. I use Calibri Detailed 28, so I'm going to change this to Calibri Detailed 28. And what did I use for the font color on this? For color. Oh, again, another one that's like that. Boy, let me go fix that while I'm at it. So that, I wanted that. Let's fix it there too. And I'm sure it's like that on all these labels too. Some of these examples, these tutorials are old. Been using them for many years, and I may not have brought them all up to where they need to be. As long as they act properly, that's all I usually care about. Where's the forecolor on those? That's interesting. Why did I not get forecolor on those? Back color? Huh. It doesn't show me forecolor on those labels. Wonder why. Oh, it's on that one. How come? Is it? Oh, it's because some of these. Oh, that's right. Oh, this one, this one, this one, and this one have labels in it. These two cells, even though they look like label outlines, they aren't labels yet. Okay. Well, it's smarter than I am. Um, so I want to get the forecolor in here and change it to that same color. You don't have to do all this that I'm doing right now. I'm just doing it because I'm anal about some things. Uh, and I should just pick these at the same time and then those also. Made its forecolor correct. Okay, so now the forecolor is correct there, and now I'll change the forecolor here, here, and here to be the same thing. Huh, they aren't quite coming up the same. that same value. Anyway, I'm going to delete this little icon thing that they always put here and move that in a bit. I'm going to try to make it aligned a little bit over those sub reports. Again, these are the things you play with. You take time and do things like this, make your thing look good. All right. But the reason I did this, I want to put some space out here because I want to put in the header of the report the net earnings that I have. All right. So this is going to take a little bit of computation in order to do this, but you'll see it's really neat how we're going to do this. So yeah, it's not just about the expenses here. I want to actually just say, what are my net earnings? So my net earnings are basically all the income I got or profit income I got minus my expenses. Okay, that would be my net earnings. You can kind of think of it, it's my profit minus this profit minus this expense. It should do the same thing. But we're going to do it the long way and actually do a full calculation on this to make it work. I think that's what I did. Let me look and see what I have as far as the expense. Oh no! Oh yeah! I'm going to take the total profit minus the total expenses. So as you remember, I'm going to close this down. If in fact I have to close this all down, I'll come back to it to show you the individual one. If you remember on the auction summary, I have this at the bottom that is the total profit. All right. What I did is I went in and I named that. I used the naming convention and I named it. So if I go in here and you look at this particular one, I'm sorry, Axis actually generates this, and it's called Axis Total Profit. And I think that's right. Yes, that's correct. Axis created that. Now I could rename that if I want to. I could give it something a little bit more distinct, but I'm fine with that. I know that this is saying Axis Total Profit, and it's on this particular report. To get the other one, I went in and for the total expenses, and again, go to design view, look at this one, and Axis generates this one. It says Axis totals current expense dash item cost because it's actually doing it on a field that already exists. Okay, it wasn't a derived field. It's a field that's there that I'm just summing up basically. I'm totaling up the sums of it, if you will. The subtotals. I'm basically adding up. I'm summing up the subtotals that we get for that particular field. So now let's go in here and go back to our report, and we are going to drop in a text box. And now you notice it doesn't highlight like we're used to seeing in the logo. That's because, or in the, I'm sorry, not in the logo, in the tab control form, the tab control pages when we dropped them in there, okay? Because this is going right at the top. I mean, this is going into the master report. So it's just going to show me that I have the capability wherever I am in this right now to draw this box. I'm going to draw it right here. And it should give me a label with it too. And I think it did. I think we're not seeing it though. Oh, hey, you know what? I picked the wrong control. Let me get back, go out of here. This is the one I wanted. I actually, sometimes I get these two mixed up. This is the command button. I'm sorry about that. If you did that, just delete it. This is the text box control. So I clicked on that. Now it's highlighted so that it's active. And now you get that A, B, and now you know you got a text box control. And the reason I know I put the wrong one in there, now it looked like a button first off, and I also didn't have this label here, and I know it's really hard to see right now. So we'll fix that up so you can see it better. But I want it to say net earnings. I'll tell you what. Let's fix the background first so we can see this better. Anyway, and I'm going to make the background of that the same color as. Well, no, I'll make it a little bit different shade than the background of this. So I'm going to go in and do a format and then a fill, and I'll make it, I think this one right here, that will work. And then I'll expand that out a bit so it comes up really close to that box. And I will, I usually when I have something where it's right next to the thing, I really like to have the text and then a colon and then make it right justified. So let's first fix the text, and we'll say net earnings colon. All right, and I'll make it upper. I make it bold. I'm gonna make it white so it stands out on that background a little bit better. Oh, white down here. White down here. No, no, not the background. The text. Okay. And now I will write justify the thing. Probably close it up a little bit too. You know what? In fact, I think on this one, what I did, no, that's fine. That'll be good that way. All right. And okay, so that's fine. Now we want to actually write the expression in this field that will do that calculation. So it's a little involved. I've given it to you in the tutorial if you just want to type it in yourself. And always remember to put the equal sign first and then start doing it, okay? But Access does give us help to do this. I could I always wondered if you could do it from here. I guess not. I guess not. I guess can't. All right, let's go here, and I want to go to Control Source and hit the ellipse, and it brings up the expression builder. And we've used this a couple times already in class. Now, this is when I use it the most, is to create expressions. So it is very easy to type something wrong. Okay. Also, the way Access references things, I've noticed, isn't necessarily consistent. All right. And you'll pick this up the more and more applications you build. You'll notice these little differences. But one way to just assure that you're doing the right thing is just use the expression builder and let it guide you through it. So, before, when we reference things, everything was at the same level. So all we had to do was basically pick out its name. But this case, we want to pull something off that's really at another level. You kind of think of these as being at a level down from the master. In other words, they're in the master, okay? So when I refer to them, I can't just refer to its object and then that's it. I have to actually go through it in association with this one. And that's why I like using this, because it will always consider the thing you need where it is in relationship to the thing you're working on. So right now we are actually working on the object for RPT balance, but we want to reference something that's on RPT, RSB auction summary and RSB expense summary. So to do that, and it's not really that difficult to do, and I want to make sure I don't mislead you here. I want to make sure I do it right. Go over here and open up RPT balances. It's right here at the top, okay? Usually the one you're working on will be at the top. So the one I'm working on is at the top. Expand that out, and now you'll see that in that is the auction summary and the expense summary. So let's go down to auction summary first. Just double click on that, and now that should come up with all the objects that are in there that are named. All right. So most of these objects, again, are named by Access. And the one we're looking for is this one that says Access totals profits. Okay. So again, go up here and make an equal sign first. You have to do that. And then do this expansion here, and then Access total profits. Double click, and now that's in there. Now it has that as part of the equation. And what we want to do is we want to subtract. Go to this one now, expense summary, and we're looking for, now if you can't see it, just widen this a bit, okay, and you'll be able to see it. We're looking for this one that says Access totals cur expense dash item costs. Good thing we named this, because now we know where it's coming from and which one what it is. So we know that's the item cost field. That's the one we want to use. I don't know why this is showing item cost 1 up here. There must be something I did before that it kept it, and what I didn't mean for it to. But anyway, this is the one we want to have right here. And we're going to say OK. And now that's in there. If it worked correctly, let's go see if it did. If it worked correctly, we should see a number in there when we open it up in regular view. And we do. We see a number of 3,328. I believe that's correct. I'm just going to double check to make sure. Yep, that's it. That's the number I want. All right. But we can make this even look better, right? That's just a flat number. We really want to, these are all currency. We should probably want to make that currency. So let's go back and do that. I'm going to go to design view and I'm going to make that look like currency. Um, Again, what I'd go do is I go up to format and it's got the dollar sign. Just click on that. Now it's current. Oh, if you wanted actually, if you wanted to work from uh, layout view here, you could do that, and then you would actually see that what you see is what you get thing. Close that down a little bit and put it even there. I think I made this a little bit larger and maybe centered it. Anyway, you can do whatever you want. Again, I would probably center it and bold it because that is the big number I'm looking for. In fact, one of the things I might do is actually just make the size of it larger so it stands out like that. That's kind of neat. I like that. It's up to you. Again, those kind of things they're entirely up to you to do it. Um, I can't think if there's anything else here. I just want to look at my notes really quick to make sure. Nope, I think that's it. So, anyway, this was really cool. We actually have a report that is a combination of two other reports. That's what we end up in the end. And by the way, here's what it looks like in regular view, regular report view. And if I look at it in print preview, it looks like this. Not a bad report. I mean, I'd still do a lot more cleaning up. Maybe I would have this date and time really over here, and maybe in this centered or something like that, or maybe I'd put this in the footer of the report. But typically I wouldn't. Maybe I'd put it in both places. I could do that, by the way. Right now, I could just go and copy this and put it into the report's footer. Right now, we don't have a report footer here. Well, I'm going to do that just for fun, just to show you that you can do things like that. Let me close out print preview, and I'll go over back into design view, and I will actually put a report footer on here. And again, I'd probably make the background the same background, whatever the color was on that. Do make it like that, and then take the field and its label. Do Control C. Come down here, put your cursor anywhere in here. It's always going to throw it up here to the left, and you're going to have to move it. So we'll do Control V, and it did. And now we could go like this and put it over here, wherever you want it to line up to. That's good. And I go like this now. And now when I do the report view, I go all the way down to the bottom. There it is again. It's in both places. Or I could do the print preview, and you got it on the first page, and this one only has 2 pages on it. So when I go here, you'll see you got it on the bottom of the last page too. So that's kind of nice. I like that. I would probably do that. Maybe I could put a logo for my company on here, something like that. But you basically learn how to do a really neat report. I know it took a little while here me explaining it, but truthfully, I can knock this out in a matter of 10 minutes probably, doing everything we did here. If I really had, if I wasn't explaining it and just doing it on my own, 15 minutes, let's say 15 minutes, half an hour tops. And that would be if I really spent time really making things look elegant and all that. But something that my boss might need for a really quick meeting or something like that, this would probably be good enough. And again, the other thing would be that's really neat is, maybe he's just worried about auctions today. Then I could just give him this part of it. Maybe he's just worried about monthly expenses. I could give him that part of it. There's a lot of neat things I could do right here now. To combine reports into a master report. So it's yet another way to visualize data from many different subjects together. To do some kind of aggregation based off of numbers that are being reported for different subjects that aren't related to each other. Okay. Now, truthfully, I wouldn't have separated the expenses and the auction into separate files or separate databases. I would keep them in the same one and just model it like we did here, that there isn't any kind of relationship. But that's again one of the cool things about these SQL databases. Not everything has to be related. It's so often you look at these things and they're all highly interconnected together. You end up with a network of tables, and there's a path that can be drawn contiguously from one table to another table somehow. Okay, that doesn't have to happen. It can be broken like it is here, and that's what we've got right here. So you at this point have now seen just about, I would say about 95% of the things that you may ever want to do in your life with a database management system. uh, if you were building it for yourself. But what if you were building it for somebody else? And granted, we have tried to be user friendly throughout this with the idea that others might want to use this, maybe people in our work group. But let's say we are really doing this, that we're not doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for somebody else. And they don't know anything about how to build objects in Access or create relationships or create reports or anything like that. Uh, or maybe they do know how to create reports, but they don't know anything about the data itself or how to manage that. Okay, you could actually build. They could actually have access and tie it to a database that you have, and then use the report mechanism. I think I mentioned to you, I've had people at Spirit where they use Access only to do reports. They never do anything with the data itself. Somebody else is doing the data for them, and sometimes the data isn't even in a SQL table. It's not in a subject or any of the other kind of tables that we have here in the BOW. It's in an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, or even a flat file. And believe it or not, uh, Access to some extent can use its reporting mechanism to do that kind of stuff. But let's say we have a full-fledged application with a lot of objects, and those objects are table objects, and they're query objects, and they're form objects, and they're report objects, and we have relationships among the different table objects, and we want to somehow automate the practice of managing that data. That's the last part of this class that we're about to move into in lesson 7, where we learn how to build. We learn two things. One is how to build navigation, what we call navigation, into our application. And then secondly, putting it into a format where it can be delivered where it's fairly protected. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, with Access, we can't ever fully protect it. There are ways that big IT groups can, but we in this class will not be able to fully protect it. But we're going to make it so difficult for people to mess it up that they won't even want to try. All right. So I have a method for compiling. It isn't really truly compiling, but it's pretty close to protecting those objects so that people can't get in the background and really mess them up. So anyway, that's what we're going to be learning about next. I think it's a fascinating subject. It's one that you don't find very much literature on, and even if you go out on things like YouTube and even the videos that do exist, they don't cover everything that I've been able to put together on this. I really think it's what we have in this class is one of the most extensive methods for building an application in Access. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. But anyway, this is again all part. This lesson was all about how do we visualize data that's coming from multiple subjects. Sometimes they're related to each other, sometimes they're not. When they are related to each other, the relationship could take on different flavors through a thing that we call joins. In this particular one, we actually went in and created queries that uh, basically turned those joins that we had into one-to-many so that we saw all the types and only the records in the receiver that related to them. And again, I'll remind you of that by opening up one of these so you can see we had left outer joins on the categories on each one of those. And again, you will use those quite a bit in doing reporting. You may have right outer joins at times. It wouldn't be unusual for you to have a combination of both of them. And one of the other things I'm going to do in lesson 7 is show you basically a prototype application that has a lot more, it extends quite a bit some of the lessons that we've learned. We will see things like a subject form that has a subject form within it that finally has the subform for child records. So, in other words, a subject that has a one to many to another subject that has a one to many to a supplemental table. And so you can see that how we could actually embed objects with each other and all that. And again, similar type of thing. We'll see some reports that are a little bit more involved when we talk about the layers of reporting, and then we'll actually see some reports that are different than the subject reports. There's still subject reports in that they use data from subjects, but at the same time it's a different kind of structure. We'll see things like catalogs and mailing labels and things like that. That I will give you an example where I've done a lot of that stuff in the example, and you'll be able to just at this point, you know enough to go in and explore those things and understand them on your own. So, anyway, we'll call this one done. And again, we'll move on to lesson 7 next. Thanks a lot.